preserved my youth. Not only did it capture my goals, it told me the truth.
Conversate for a few, cause it a few.
I let them know we missing you. The love is unconditional.
Wave your hands, what's the land if we family?
We got a world premiere right here, now get lost.
So off we go, let the trumpets blow. And hold on, because the driver of the mission is a pro.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Mark B, and you were tuned in to conVersate with us. Remember, conVersate stands for communicate, converse, and relate. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel, click that bell icon so you can be notified of upcoming episodes, and make sure you tell a friend. So today, special episode for me. For those who don't know, I'm from the Midwest. I'm a Midwest dude through and through. I grew up in Topeka, Kansas, home of Brown versus Board of Education, and a typical small town Midwest city, plagued with some ills, but a lot of pride, a lot of strength from his people, especially the Black people. So I'm gonna bring in some brothers that I know and I respect, and we're gonna talk about our time in Topeka and how it formed us and some of the things we have on the horizon. So fellas, come on in. All right, so I'll just go ahead and start. I got my brother Greg Miller. Greg, what's up, man?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you joining me, man. Hey. I got my boy, classmate / cousin Terrence Saunders. Terrence, what's up with you, man?
Man, what's good with it? We out here.
Yep. And indeed, I got my boy, I call him Chopper, but we're going to call him by his government, Frank Kirkdall Jr. What's up, bro?
Man, chilling. Thank you for having me on here, having us on here today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, I wanted to bring you brothers on, man, because, you know, we all grew up in Topeka. I think we all took part of Topeka with us, whether we left and never came back like myself, or left and came back and left again and then came back again, right? I think, you know, one thing that you realize when you grow in a place like Topeka and you go away, you realize whatever feelings you left with, how that city formed us as men stays with you and how you guide yourself through your day to day, whether you know it or not. And I want to start off, we'll start off with Brother Terrence. When you think about growing up in Topeka, what lessons did you learn and how did it form you as a man?
Man, a lesson learned, being resilient for one. There can be no quit, and that there always has to be drive. The lessons learned is just that work ethic, that grit, that consistency. You have to try to prevail through it all. So I ain't saying I had the worst situation, but by no means was it golden either. So yeah.
And you talk about resilience. I tell people all the time, man, I said, listen, I was not a gangster. I wasn't no tough guy, but I grew up in a place where you had to be tough enough so that you wasn't fooled, that you wasn't just going to get picked on, right? So that resilience and that grit that you talk about, definitely that's something that I know that I carried along with me. G Money.
That and being persistent, my bad. Yeah, that and being persistent.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, never quit. G Money, for you, man, what lessons you learn, man? How did it form you as a man?
Man, I tell you what, a few things, man. I learned as I was growing up, man, choose my circle carefully. I learned that as a kid, man. Like growing up, a lot of people I did grow up with, dead, in jail, running from the law. Before we hit high school, they was in and out of juvie. So I learned at a young age to choose my circle very carefully, so I wouldn't be, caught up in situations like some of my peers were. As like, for an example, you and I, we latched on, early years in high school, and that circle and that bond got created. It ain't never been broken. I latched on to people who had a mindset like I did. People who wanted to do things outside of what we was accustomed to seeing, in our neighborhoods or in our community. So that was one thing. And secondly, man, would just be relentless. I like how T said resilience, but for me, it'd be relentless. Topeka's not a place where there's a whole lot of opportunities for people like us. Let's be honest, it's not. But are we just going to conform and just take it? Or are we going to be relentless or have that relentless mindset and go after what we feel like we deserve and what we're achieving in life?
Man, and we're gonna get into this, but I want Frank to say what he has to say, but I'm gonna say it real quick. Topeka was like a almost an experimental place when it comes to systemic racism and how it impacted Black people. So let me set the scene for those who don't know. Frank, I promise I'm gonna bring you in, but you got, most people talk about in the late '80s how crack cocaine ravaged the Black community. We saw that firsthand in Topeka, Kansas, right?
Yeah.
We saw how the gang influence from other cities, how it came from Chicago. The next thing you know, one of the biggest pieces of propaganda ever put out, the movie Colors comes out, and now we got Bloods and Crips in Topeka. What did DJ Quick said? You got cats claiming Crip. They ain't even seen the shop.
And he was
We had
thinking,
that.
yeah.
We had that in Topeka, and one of the biggest things that I'm on now is community and building community, and how do we lead and protect our community. And those things have such a devastating impact on our community. We're going to get into it a little bit later, but I just wanted to set the scene for why we're talking and having this discussion today. But Frank, I'm sorry, my brother. I know you're going to
No,
bring it.
perfect time.
How did Topeka form you? What lessons did you learn as a man?
So Topeka, the things that we spoke about, needing to be able to grind and the grit, created a portion of my family that took to it like a fish to water. And they were out in it. And it just so happened that I had that group of individuals that actually protected me so that I didn't actually have to get out in there. And there, at least at that time, there would have been a penalty for messing with me because I wasn't bothering nobody. I wasn't out there like that. So a lot of people knew not to mess with me. And so I'm saying that the Topeka thing actually showed me from inside how the hustle works. I had hustlers in my family who told me, I want to show you some of this, not so that you'll aspire to do it, but that you can recognize it when it comes onto you or when you're around it. And so if you think about any of the films or the documentaries of the 30s, 40s, and 50s, there's a lot of people who learned how to survive when there was no corporate America jobs for us.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for a government job or the fire department, at that time, the major industries that feed people now wasn't even here. So they had to learn how to get it out the mud.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of my family members took to it so seriously that it created a protective barrier for me. And since I knew not to get out in it, I learned from observation and from people who trained me of the things to look out for. So it's been a blessing for me. And then there is a sense of survivor's remorse that growing up, I didn't have friends that had that same support system. So I can see over time how that tore people's lives up. And so for me personally, it showed me how to maneuver and stay out of the way. It taught me to stay on the porch. So it created me to be the man that I am right now, that I know it when I see it, I know it when I hear it, but I know to stay out of it because there's no longevity in it. And I've seen that firsthand. So Topeka's been a gift and a curse, but that is what I learned as a Black man in Topeka, to learn how to stay out the way.
You talk about a gift and a curse. You talk about survivor's remorse. But the one thing I'm going to jump on is there used to be an honor in the community. There used to be an honor system. We all knew the knuckleheads, right? Every city's got its knuckleheads. Every city got its people that is vulnerable that could go either way. You could, try to follow the knuckleheads or try to do right, depending on who gets into their life. And you got, some of us that was just like, hey, listen, what God had for us, we was already, set up in a way that, okay, listen, if we failed, it was strictly on us. It wasn't our support system. It wasn't anything that created a situation where we needed to be like that. And I specifically remember, and I know Greg and Terrence could back me up on this. I specifically remember being around certain situations, because how could you not be? Because you in small ass, boring ass Topeka, right? Where everybody hangs out together. And I could specifically remember, hey, schoolboy, time for you to vacate the premises. You can't, we couldn't hang around where the nonsense was going to happen, right? Yes, you got cats that would test you, But the older brothers, they wasn't. They was like, nah, man, this dude, he ain't got nothing to do with that. He ain't got nothing to do with that. And and I think that resilience goes past. We talking about what we encountered, but when you talk about our parents, my family, they came up from Louisiana, and this is around depression time, so scarcity was king. I remember as a young man telling my mama I was hungry, and she looked at me and she said, "Boy, you don't know what hunger is." And when she said it, I saw the look in her eyes, and I was just like, "Damn, she right. She right." So it's been a legacy of overcoming, systemic racism and whatever systemic racism put in front of us. It used to be Jim Crow, right? I know y'all heard about Topeka back in the day before before desegregation happened. There was 4th Street in Topeka, and they said it rivaled Harlem in terms of like the black businesses and everything, and all the different nightclubs and stuff. And then desegregation happened, and we lost that. And then they targeted us with the things that we encountered. So, unfortunately, I think most of us. I mean, I know I've lost family to the streets. Have y'all encountered the same
Yep.
thing?
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
I lost a nephew, cousins to violence in the streets. And I just think that how do we because we are what they call us unks now. We the older men. We the ones that got to kind of reach to some of them, we like grandpa, right? Which is crazy to me. But how do we impart that knowledge on folks who will have the impact to try to change what we see impacting the Black community in Topeka?
Man, that's a lead by example kind of thing. Um, Speak your truth. Let them know your experiences. Let them know that you're not better than. Um, Relate. You have to be relatable. Uh, you have to be patient as well because they might not grab it right out the gate. There's so many, things you can look at when it comes to something like that. When it comes to giving back or pouring into, say, a younger generation or those that are in these type of environments or situations. So no different than when I go into the prison and minister. And a lot of these cats are 19, 20, years of age, and just trying to build those bonds, those connections, and you got to be consistent with it, as well. Your actions definitely have to match with what you're saying to them also. So those things weigh heavy on a lot of young people's hearts in these type of environments or situations.
I can't speak for other cities, man, but I felt, and y'all correct me if you feel I'm wrong or you feel differently, but I felt like during the 90s when we were coming up, right? It almost became like Topeka lost all hope. Like there wasn't really, there wasn't the growth, it wasn't opportunity, and it felt like a place like, man, if in order for me to really do something, I can't be here. I gotta go. Now, maybe that was just me, but I wonder if y'all saw it the same way during that time frame, when crack came in, when the gangs came in, you started seeing like, okay, if I stay here, maybe I'll go to Washburn, but I could go work at Frito-Lay or Goodyear, do a factory job, or try to get on with the government or whatever. But I always felt like that sense of hope wasn't there, and maybe it was just where through my lens. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, what was it for you all?
Me honestly, man, when I moved back to Topeka going into middle school, I cried. And you can ask my mom about this, man. I cried because I told her I didn't belong there. The mindset that I carried as a young man was way different than my surroundings. No, it was way different than the people in my family. Was way different than the people I was going to school with. So I didn't really feel like I belonged. It took for me to meet a few of my close friends who I obviously latched on to, like yourself and Kaylin, to where I felt like I belonged in. What I mean? I found some people who had the same mindset, the same drive, the same goals to do things outside of what my surroundings were. What I mean? So, for me, it happened when I was young. As young, and I knew that when I was young. Of course, you young, you high school, still living with parents and so on and so forth. You gotta do what you gotta do. But I knew that that was not going to be a place where I was going to reside because seeing my older relatives, complaining about their jobs, customer service jobs, working in warehouses, complaining about this, complaining about that. Yeah, that's nothing that I wanted for myself as I grew as I became a young adult. So I was definitely trying to put myself in a position so I did not have to experience that. Because I heard enough of it. You know what I mean?
Understand. Frank, what you think, man?
I've learned the value of the slow roll. I have a faith that teaches me that I am right where I'm supposed to be right now. I wasn't prepared this time last year or 30 years ago, and I had to go through that process. Topeka was a very challenging process for me because much like it was just mentioned, I did not have the relative that was at Goodyear where I could get a job that paid a living wage. When I left here, it's kind of like a biblical principle. No man can be a prophet in his own land. People remember
Yeah.
you and that's him. With the last name that I carried, sometimes people would remember the preachers, sometimes people remember the men that were in the streets. And so I never was comfortable with my name on a resume that it was going to not be discarded for something that somebody was prejudiced about. So I had to leave Topeka. I had to learn some marketable skills. And now that I'm back in Topeka, I've been here for the last 5 years. My prayer is that I have an opportunity to get at those kids that are about 7, 8, and 9 and encourage them that you don't have to be hard. You got to choose your circle wisely.
Right.
Don't let people dare you into conflict or becoming a crash test dummy. Like I get a chance to now share with my homies' grandkids what they didn't know to teach their kids, the grandchild's parents. And so I've been blessed that I was preserved, I was protected, and that now, while I don't have any children of my own, I have an opportunity to summarize some of this and teach young people early what it is that they should look out for. And it's kind of like that Frederick Douglass concept. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so that's where my heart is at right now, is to even encourage kids right now. As challenging as it is, there are a whole lot of ways out of the hood. Nas had a lyric one time. It said, "There's so many ways out the hood, but no signs say out." No
Yeah.
one could have showed me how to do what I needed to do because they were just surviving. I was just blessed that I joined the military. I went to Washburn, slow rolled it. Now I'm in a position where I'm truly, truly blessed. And again, survivor's remorse. There's so many people around that didn't have that experience and don't have hope that I just want to encourage them. And it's, to me, I truly believe if you can make it into T-Town, you can actually make it anywhere. That's my opinion. I
Yeah.
stand on it.
You know, man, I'm gonna tell you, when I left Topeka, man, I was extremely bitter. I was bitter about the racism that we encountered. I don't know about y'all, but for me, I encountered it almost daily. You know, I went to a different high school than y'all. You know, me and Terrence went to a different high school, so we saw. I always tell people, I said, you don't really know how white folks truly are until you see them when they don't have to worry about any consequences. When they don't have to worry about getting punched in the mouth for their actions or for what they do because they're protected by the environment that they're in. So you learn how to scope out, you know, situations. We mentioned about situations in the street, how to say, okay, listen, this ain't right. I need to go. Let me watch out. You also firsthand knowledge of how this system is built on keeping Black people down.
Yeah.
And for the longest, I used to think about that. Why are so many people like we talk about that crab in the barrel mentality. You talk about the young people that, you know, we all said it like now they call them crash test dummies, right? But back then we was like, man, dudes got penitentiary dreams. Like you see how they are targeting us. Why you still in this environment? Why are you still doing this thing? And there's a lot of things that go into that, right? Different traumas and stuff that now we understand why such and such was wild and out because his mama may have been on drugs. His dad may have been locked up. There's so many different things that could happen that caused people to act the way that they did. But I want to make sure that I emphasize that whoever watches this is not coming from a perspective of I left and I didn't come back and I'm better than you all. Because if that's the mindset, then that's just me patting myself on my back. There's no help in that. I'm saying that, listen, this is a place that I came from. I'm a part of who I am. Who I am comes from God, my parents that molded me, and the environment that I grew up in. Right. And there's a brother in Topeka. I ain't gonna say I really respect him a whole bunch, but he did say something profound. He said, "Hey, how can we improve the community? How can this community advance and progress when the people who got sense, the people who can actually lead, they leave and they don't come back?" And Frank talked about that with survivor's remorse. Have you ever felt that, Greg, Terrence?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. One of the hardest moments for me when I did leave and then came back, just left, graduated college, whatnot, couldn't get a job anywhere. And then if y'all remember that Labor Ready right there by
Yep.
Washburn?
Yep.
That's where if you was on drugs, that's where you went to get work. They would hire you on. And I remember I barely even got that assignment. And I'll never forget the paycheck. I put in shoelaces for $4 and some change. And my paycheck was like 42.68. I'll never forget that. I'm like, here I am, educated, and I'm at a Labor Ready. And I just looked around like this can't be it, you know? So
But
that
look
was one of those pivotal
look
moments.
how racism. I'm sorry to interrupt, but look how racism and systemic racism does us as Black men. And I say Topeka was a prototype. It was an experiment. You got a college educated Black man having to find a way with people. No shame on them, right? Because
None.
there's a guy, we didn't go down those paths, but somebody who's trying to really rehabilitate from drugs or from a legal situation. I'll go ahead, man.
100%.
I just had to point that out, man.
Yeah.
That out.
No, that's very true. And then, like I said, you work something like that, you figure you like, no, there's a greater calling. And then you find yourself in a different environment and situation thriving. But the whole time, whether I want to be there or not, it's how do I show people or how do I let someone know there are other ways to go on about this and being successful and bringing it back home. So there are times where I did those ultra marathon, those races to raise money for certain things, because I always want to give back because that is where I'm from. So I don't ever say I disown it. I might not want to be there or live there like that, but I'm not going to disown what shaped and what formed me or anything like that by no means. And I'm not better than anybody when it comes to that.
I was guilty of that for a long time. I mean, I used to flat out shit on Topeka because of my bitterness. And then I realized, like, you know what, man, you call yourself a leader. You call yourself a leader of men. You can't lead like that. You're not coming from a pure place. You know, what did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tell Malcolm in the movie? He said, if the water's clear, the people will drink it, but if it's foul, they won't. So I had to get myself right, man. And I feel like it's time to, do something for our hometown, but we'll get into that in a minute, but Gray, what you think, man?
Well, man, my story ain't too much different, man. And a lot of people don't know. I've never received a job that I actually applied to in Topeka, let alone Kansas, if I'm being honest. I've been offered employment places, Arizona, Tennessee, Texas, but I would have to sacrifice my kids if I was going to take those. I had to leave. I didn't want to be a dad from the postal service. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just mail my kids checks and not spend any time with them. So I made the sacrifice to stay, but I couldn't find a job. I've never received a job in Topeka or Kansas, period, that I actually applied to. 2 degrees, tons of experience, never. You know what I mean? So in order for me to gain employment, I had to go to the car business. I had to go sell cars. And I learned a lot of traits selling cars. But for me, when I'm sitting next to a guy who just got out, no high school diploma, no college degree, selling cars right there next to me, the pride kicks in. You know what I mean? It's like, what am I doing here? No, is this a place for me, et cetera? All these thoughts started accumulating in my head. I made it work, but I made it work long enough where I could build a resume so I could move on and do other things. Ultimately, I had to get involved with real estate if I wanted to tap into my abilities without employers, knocking down my talents, if you know what I mean. I've never been fired from a job for poor performance. I've been let go of jobs in car dealerships and other companies because of I was a threat. I was a threat, unfortunately. Whether it's I'm not going to mention the companies on here, but companies and employers I've had in the past, they had let me go because I was a threat to management. I was a threat to take their jobs. I was the only black person as a territory manager. I was the only black person in the car in the car dealership that was not washing cars in the bay. You know what I mean? So I experienced a lot of that in Topeka, in Lawrence, in Kansas City. I really did. But at the end of the day, it's the mindset that you carry when things like that happen. What am I supposed to learn from this? I can, I could have easily pulled this woe is me thing. Oh, I'm black man. They just want to tear me down. Blah 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 blah. But we all fan of sports. We all fan of boxing. And if a boxer get knocked down, he's gonna get right back up and keep on swinging. So that was the mindset that I took. Okay, you can knock me down, but you're not going to stop me from growing. Just move on and keep going. I went to another company, same thing happened. Went to another company, same thing happened. That'll do a lot to somebody's mental. You know what I'm saying? You gotta do a lot to somebody's mental, but I always believed that I was a part of something bigger. So I just kept striving and kept striving. So I always try to put myself in position to give back to kids in the community. Offer to train kids for free, groups of kids for free. Don't even charge them. I could have charged them, but I didn't. I go back to Topeka and orchestrate a huge training, 50, 60 kids. And it wasn't just about sports. It was an opportunity to mentor, to talk to them, see where their head is at, and just now let them know that you don't got to play sports to survive in this world. You don't got to play sports to go to college. There's other avenues. So although I was training them because they wanted a certain performance with athletics, but at the same time, I was the one instilling in their mind, you don't need sports to survive in this world.
Yeah.
So that was the main reason why I did that.
Yeah. My homegirl and Greg, you know her well, Dr. Tori. She talks about adverse childhood experiences.
Yep.
And how they impact us as adults. And one of the things that is encouraged is mentorship and extracurricular activities. Now, Terrence, Greg, and I, we were all athletes. You know what I'm saying? Frank, you was older than us, so we didn't play against you, but we all played against each other. And we dog walked Greg's team, our senior year, but I ain't gonna bring up no old stuff. But
hey man, hey, Terrence,
you got to touch down that game. So it's all good. It's all good. But I'm gonna swing it to Frank, man. How do you see Topeka now? How do you see the Black community now? We all have our opinions about, the city, but I think it would be disingenuous for someone like me who doesn't live there, who just visits, comes back, kind of hears the rumor mill, sees stuff on social media. How do you see the Black community as it stands now?
I can't say that much has changed, other than a few large organizations coming into the area and creating mega warehouses to create production jobs or warehouse jobs. It seems like one employer's been swapped for the other. So I don't see a lot of change in that venue, but I'll say this, the World Wide Web is the great equalizer. Because now, imagine right now with what you're doing with podcasts and social media, an individual could monetize foolery or could go on to use their talents and skills to market themselves to a place outside of Topeka. So I'm actually very excited for young people if they get the correct training, because the market is now so much bigger than Shawnee County. It's so much bigger than Topeka. A person doesn't have to bet or put all their eggs in one basket that all their money would have to be made in Topeka, Kansas, with things like drop shipping and people making merchandise. It could be entertainment, music. The internet has created an opportunity for people to pursue money where they didn't have that opportunity before because you only had so many employers. The carrying capacity of Topeka, Kansas wasn't enough that um, the masses could have access to the jobs. And then our little old 6 to 8% of the whole population, knowing that half of that is from out of town and the other half, a significant number of those are on some type of assistance, some kind of state or federal assistance. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities for people to see ways to make money. But now, because of the ability of making money online, I think that that's going to be a huge thing. And then I just heard everybody basically mention we all have degrees. And so for me, what I want to add to this is if we can teach these young people not to do the oppressor's job for them, control our lust so that we don't have kids out of wedlock too early in our lives where people start taking penitentiary chances just to put food on the table. Go to school so that you can put some check marks on your resume. Don't get a job. Start at Wendy's like I did and get you a track record of putting money into the system and try to slow roll it. That's the key though. That is the key. I don't know of any get rich quick schemes. It's something that over the long run, if you play the long game, it can pay off for you. And so I'm excited for young people in Topeka because there are more opportunities. They're just not necessarily within the county limits.
You know, you look at the conversation and what we've been talking about recently. What's one thing that has the common denominator? It was economics and the ability to make a living and to do well in life. And when you look at the Black community as a whole, not just our hometown, Topeka, Kansas, the wealth gap has been the biggest divide that has helped keep the Black community down, right? Because it triggers so many different things. You know, when people are not able to take care of themselves, feed their families or whatever, then what happens? Crime. What happens? Poor decision making, right? So economics is one thing, but I think zero in on what Frank just said, mentorship is the other thing that I think we need to really hone in on when trying to come back and do something good for our community. You know, we are four brothers who, through God's blessing, you know, we're able to navigate through situations that could have took us down, right? To some, you know, they may look at us and be like, you know what, that boy made it. That boy made it out of here. He did good. But how do we go back and give to the Greg that's coming up now, to the Terrence that's coming up now, to the little Marvin, to the little Frank? How do we do that? And I think it's mentorship and leading by example. Mm-hmm. And not coming from a place where I'm better than, like Terrence said, it's coming like, hey, listen, it's my obligation and my duty to give back. That's what I feel is on my heart now, because I've done things across the country. I've met different people. I think where I come from, I remember when I left Topeka, you know, I left to, you know, the University of Missouri and embarrassed myself plenty of times because, you know, I grew up in Topeka and our style was different than the cats from St. Louis and Kansas City. And I'm always going to be, and I'm going to tell you something, while I'm not shitting on my hometown, it's my personal belief that as a young man, it behooves you to move away from where you came up from, to meet different people, to put yourself in adverse situations so you could test your mettle, to learn different things, to go to a situation where like you embarrassed, I don't know which fork to use. I don't know about y'all, but hell, I didn't get etiquette classes coming up at Topeka. Not to say we were savages and Neanderthals, but it's just, you know, just how we came up, right?
And we took home ec together too, and they didn't teach us that.
They didn't teach none of that, you know what I'm saying? Right. But as you elevate, how many times have you seen somebody that we know, and I know every single one of y'all know a Black man like this, who has the potential, and what is potential? Just that potential. And when the situation comes up, they will self-sabotage because they are uncomfortable or because they don't want to take it to that next level. You know, the thing about me that helped me, now I'm not, and I know this because I've done it. I've self-sabotaged myself to my detriment. But when I was able to overcome that, it's because of the lessons that were put into me to say, listen, no, you just as good as anybody else, and believe in yourself. And that mentorship, that leadership by example, we all can name one positive Black man. Despite all the struggles at Topeka, there was some positive people that, hardcore men that said, no, y'all gonna be men. Y'all ain't gonna be doing this foolishness. And now it's our time to do that. So, and that's the reason why I brought y'all on, man, because y'all know that a few years ago I wrote a book called Mythbusters: Lessons from Active Black Fathers, because I wanted to dispel the notion that we aren't involved in our children's lives. And I didn't narrow that down just to fathers. I narrowed that down to Black men who were big brothers, who were uncles, who were mentors or something. Frank don't know this, man, but I looked up to him to a lot, especially right when I got out of college.
We all did.
And I was in Kansas City, and he was in Kansas City too.
Yeah.
And we both was working in collections. And I saw how he was navigating the office and how he was, playing them folks for what they was worth. And then we would eventually, sometimes cross paths outside of work and saw how he carried himself. You never
Yeah.
know whose eyes are on you. And I give you your kudos for that, bro.
Hey,
So,
hey, listen.
yeah.
Hey, listen, Chop. See, I never knew your name was Frank till about 10 years ago.
I didn't know it until Facebook.
Hey, listen.
I was like, who the hell is Frank?
Right. You know what I'm saying? As a young man, growing up, you was older than us, you know what I'm saying? But I sat back and watched you, you know what I'm saying? I watched how you move. I watched how you move in certain situations. I watched how you move around other people, your personality, your character, you know what I'm saying? I watched you, so I'm gonna give you your flowers now, brother, you know what I'm saying? Because you actually inspired me. You know what I mean? Although I thought I was more mature than majority people that I was around, but I was watching older people like you and watching how you move. So I just shaped how I started carrying myself around circles of different people and how I spoke to them and how I put a smile on their faces, and so on and so forth, bro. So, hey, I'm gonna give you your flowers right now, boss. I appreciate you.
Because we came up, we younger than Frank. And me, Terrence, and Greg, you had to have the ice grill. You had to be hard.
Yeah.
And when you wasn't hard, it was hard to turn it off. And then you see this brother right here. I was like, damn, he's sweet talking, smooth talking, everybody. I could do the same.
Yeah. Always nice.
Man.
Always had a fresh cut. You know what I'm saying? Always spoke good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we watched you, bro. And so we appreciate you how you helped shape us.
But enough of that, man. Enough of that.
One of East Topeka's finest, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
So
thank y'all, though, bro. Really appreciate it.
No problem. That being said, we're relaunching my book about fatherhood, and we are going to start the annual Active Black Dad Leadership Conference. And we'll be bringing that to Topeka. It's going to be on the east side. I don't know, Greg. I know you ain't from the east side, but me telling you, Frank, you more from central,
No, bro.
/west.
Hey, man, I grew up in California townhomes in Pine Ridge, brother.
Okay, well, we got you there.
Stop it.
That's for sure. That's for sure east side. Because my first 10 years, I was on 6th and Weir, right by the gas mains. You know what I mean? So yeah, going down the East Road.
Yeah. I was right there where you had to get permission to go to Pine Ridge.
Yeah. When you play basketball down in the pit. You remember down there?
Absolutely.
Man, but anyway, so we're gonna be bringing the
come on now.
Yeah, we're gonna bring the conference to Topeka. It's going to be in April. Just finalizing some things. We'll get the exact date. But I've challenged my brothers to come and be with me, and I want to make sure that I overstate that this is not, these guys that left and come back and say, y'all not doing it right. And here we are to save the day. No. How can we come? How can we be of assistance? How can we give back to those who are in our hometown and how we can do better by them? That's my challenge for myself. That's my challenge for these brothers. So I want you all to be on the lookout for that. And speaking of being an example, being smooth, I have to shout out our brother, Carlos Steele. We got the terrible news right before we recorded this that Carlos Steele for those from Topeka, Kansas, for you to envy the Gucci guys,
Yeah, well, you're the
you
envy, the
know,
Gucci guys. Yeah.
Carlos was front and center with that. He moved down here to Dallas, Fort Worth, where I'm at. And I would connect with him. I need a headshot. I would go by, he'd cut me a deal, have my headshot looking nice. Did that a couple times. Whatever business venture I had, if I had products, he'd take photos and get everything going, man. And it was always a good time. Because I would always, he had his studio and he had the models, and then I would go in there and tease him about how when we was young, he carried around a man purse. I was like, you was in high school carrying around a man purse. He was that and he would laugh. And it's just tragic, man. How he passed away. And I want to send my condolences to his family. And just to encourage everybody to love on your people, tell them that you love them, do the things, take the trip, do everything you can to live this life, because we don't know what day and we don't know what time. So,
hey, can I slide in real quick?
Yes, sir.
That brother was a trailblazer. He had a rim shop.
Yep.
When nobody around in my age group was really trying to conduct business. A pioneer rapper in making some of the coldest hits to ever come out to town. They created the organization.
So hold on. Frank said T-Town, but for us, we call it Top City.
Top City.
Top City came from the Gucci guys. So,
absolutely. Yes, sir. And then, so a businessman here went into photography. He was a trailblazer in so many ways because he was willing to take chances and calculated chances. And so I want to marry those two concepts with the rest in peace portion. But when you really think about it, he had an entrepreneurial spirit that was, I don't know that I've seen it since. And so it's going to be an opportunity for us to kind of dissect that and speak to it more. That sometimes, to your point, sometimes you have to get away to be exposed to other ways of making money and other possibilities of other lifestyles to live, to then maybe come back home and spread that fresh water and that good seed so you can encourage other people with hope. So I literally, because of this conversation right there where those two crossroads meet, I really want to ensure that young people hear stories of Carlos Vincent Steele, aka Money Shy Los. He was a young hustler that turned it legit. And that's, man, I think that story is worth being told.
Definitely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, I think it's been a good conversation, brothers, man. We're going to go around the horn. Terrence, man, you got anything going on? Any final words you want to share, man?
No, man, I appreciate you putting this together and doing this. This is something that's been on my heart. But you putting it into action. So I'd love to be a part of this, what you got going right now. And I'm just grateful to see y'all's faces and know that there are others that are in Topeka that actually stayed and are mentoring and being these mentors that we speak about in a town, in a city that, I was birthed, you were birthed and raised in and whatnot. So I give take my hats off to those individuals as well that are actually staying and pouring into these, younger generations, younger people out there like that too. So no, hats off to them as well.
Yeah, yes, indeed, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. Great.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it as well, man. It's like I told you before, I'm all in. I'm all in, and whatever we can come up with that inspire the younger generation and even some of the older generation, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't have to be a product of your environment and follow the footsteps of those above you. You can always, see what they're doing and have a different mindset and do something different. And so whatever it takes to be a part of something like that, man, I'm all for it, because I didn't have nothing like that as I was growing up, and I know how beneficial it would have been.
Absolutely. Frank?
Man, and I just want to give some flowers real quick as well. So whether it would be daiquiris or writing books or social media moguls that's hitting 100th episodes and whatnot, I just want to encourage anybody that's doing the thing. And I appreciate you, man. That thought came to my mind because I was so thankful in this moment, in this last 47 minutes. I felt alive. Not that I feel dead without it, but this is above and beyond. Yeah. This right now could easily live past all of our lives and influence somebody who needs to come across this and hear this. And so
Right.
it's just a beautiful thing to get around good brothers and sow good seed and pour fresh water. And so for me, ministry is going to be the key. I'm going to keep trying to tell these young people that you got to learn how to be by yourself. You got to learn how to put your nose to the grindstone. And we got to go back to some old principles that our great grandparents was on. You don't get a chance to floss before you do the work. And so there's some simple principles that are tried and true, and they work today. And I just want to remind these kids, because there's so many distractions, there's so many shiny things that catch their attention. And I came up in the golden era where we could ride our bikes before the crack hit, before the gangs really hit. And I think that I literally was in that last generation that had a chance to do it before these young kids really got turned on to everything that's in the world. Used to be you had to go across town to go to the red light district. Now people got it in their pocket. And these kids, they haven't learned how to shut down the phone and be creative. And so I'm looking forward for opportunities to partner with like-minded brothers like y'all and really start to reach these young people where they're at. And show them it's not a bad thing where you started. It is all about how you finish, though. And
Yeah.
square life is good living. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Absolutely. Man, so I think we said enough, man. Thank you for the shout out, man. I appreciate y'all brothers coming on. Y'all know I'm about action. Y'all know when I say something, unless the Lord say differently, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah,
So
sir.
I say y'all down. I expect y'all to be there. And I already know y'all gonna be there, because I know y'all men about
Say
y'all
the
word.
same.
Because I wouldn't even have you on the show if you weren't. So Top City, be on the lookout. Some of your sons are coming back. We're gonna try to make a difference. We're gonna try to enhance and help those who are already there. It's not a rescue mission. It's like, hey, listen, how can we take this to the next level? How can we take our brothers and sisters to the next level? And if I can't do it in my hometown, if we can't do it in our hometown, where can you do it at? So that being said, make sure you go to our YouTube, click that bell icon so you're notified of upcoming episodes. Make sure you tell everybody about the show. conVersate. Remember, for you educated Negroes, conVersate stands for communicate, converse, and relate. So yes, it is a word. I'll holler at you next time. Peace.
Peace.